Here's what I'm going to do this morning, all right? Forgive the madness. If there's anyone who can fix sound problems, it's these geniuses in the back. I love them. But anyways, what I want to do this morning is this. I want to talk a little bit about, all right, I need you to hang in with me. I know you probably had a late night last night. It's only going to get worse. We have one more night to go. You're going to be dead tomorrow morning. It's going to be a beautiful moment, all right? We're going to go home so depleted and exhausted. It's going to be like, clearly God was there. You have no energy. All right, so... But I want to talk a little bit this morning about the will of God, all right? Now, when I use that language, many of you already turned off because you're like, oh, because you're like me. I grew up in the church, and if you're not a part of church at all, or maybe like you have no idea about the concept of God, you hear someone talk about the will of God. Let me explain what that means. What I'm really saying is this. What is God dreaming about your life? Why are you here? What are you doing here? Why were you born where you were born? Why do you go to the high school you go to? What is it God desires for your entire life? Why did He create you? What is it you're supposed to be doing with your life? Now, for many of us, when we hear language like that, we just assume that that doesn't begin until maybe our senior year in college. If we're lucky, maybe our senior year in high school. But for the rest of us, it's like that has nothing to do with me because I'm still young and my job is just to get through school. That's why I'm here. However, I completely disagree. In fact, how amazing would it be if you as a 15, 16-year-old kid actually figured out what it is God's dreaming about your life, and you didn't wait till start it when you became a 30-year-old man, but you actually began to take steps toward whatever it is God's calling you to do or be this very second. And I see it everywhere I go. I know 16-year-olds that are abolitionists. You're like, what the heck is that? I know 16-year-olds who have already made it their mission in life to end slavery. Now, for a lot of you, you're like, I didn't even know slavery was going on. Yeah, there are 27 million slaves all over the world this very second. More slaves in our time than there ever has been in the history of the world. In our time, while we sit in this building. And so I know 16-year-olds who just kind of got before God and was like, all right, God, what are you calling me to? And they've made it their mission. And so they started nonprofits. They started organizations with some help of their youth pastors and their leaders. And now they're traveling around the world and they're sharing their heart about what it means. For some of you, God's calling you to be a teacher. We undervalue education, right? You're all students. You're like, well, is he giving a political speech? No, just hang on, all right? In our world, celebrities are now, Linsanity, and they're not a teacher, all right? Like, that's our culture. In our world, Tim Tebow is the hero because he's an athlete, right? But like people who are actually going day-to-day jobs in education are not heroes. It's kind of a messed up society in which we live. Anybody can score a touchdown and spike a ball. It takes a very, very big challenge to step into a classroom all those days that you step into it and actually educate a generation of people. Relax, I'm not running for president. All right. Speaking of president, I'll just make one political statement. I'm out of here. I'm voting for Jesus. All right. Anyways. This is just a side note. I'll just say this. I've never put much stock in the government. In the way you're all too young. You don't even vote anyway, so it doesn't matter to you. But I'll just say this. The Savior of the world, just in case you're waiting on Him to become president, it's never going to happen. He's already come. And He didn't come in a White House. He came in a stable. His name is Jesus. And He didn't come to rule the nations. He came to save the nations. And that's what He's doing. That's a whole other sermon. All right, so you people, see, you eat this stuff up and it just gets me off. All right, so the will of God. All right, so here's the thing. For a lot of us, we hear language like the will of God. And growing up for me, there was only a select few of options. When someone talked about the will of God or God's dream for your life, it was, are you going to be a pastor, preacher, or a missionary and go to Haiti or Africa? Or are you going to work like in the nursery or with children at a church? And that's pretty much the gist of it, right? They never gave me any more options. And what I've learned in life is this, is that the guy who cleans the porta-johns is just as much called to do that as Billy Graham is to be a preacher. The lady that cleans teeth for a living is just as much called to do that as anyone else you can imagine in some spiritual state, right? There's no separation between like kind of ministry, clergy, and laity. It's something that the church has always struggled with. You're like, what does that mean? It just means that you are just as called as I am called. We're all called to individual areas of our lives. Now, when we talk about the will of God, there's several things that stand out for me. If you've been around this any amount of time, you know this. That there's a lot of ambiguity around this subject of the will of God, and by that I mean this. This is kind of the way it works for me. There's a lot of confusion, right? I hear kind of semi-adults or students say this oftentimes. It works like this usually. This is the way I found it growing up. The moment you're sure she's the one, right? You go tell her you're the one, only to find that she looks at you and she tells you God's convinced that she told her you're not the one, right? It's kind of how the will of God works. It's very confusing sometimes. You feel like maybe God's calling you to a certain area, so you take the leap, only to find it's not all that it's cracked up to be. Like, for an example, I've met adults before who pray, God, get me out of this job, take me to this job, and they feel like, man, this is the will of God, only to get to that job and realize they're more miserable there than they were at the previous one. There's a lot of ambiguity around it. There's a lot of confusion around this faith language. Maybe you've heard stuff like this, like, if it's the will of God, it will happen. That always confuses me as a kid. So I was like, cool, that means I don't have to do anything. God will do it, right? Tie my shoe, God, now, right? No, it's not going to happen. It'll work out in God's timing. Well, what is God's timing? What does that even mean? There's a lot of paralysis around it. Do I make something happen or do I wait on God? Some of you are like, I'm just going to go through high school because that's right in front of me, and then one day God's just going to show me, right? One day God's just going to open the door, and that's pretty much going to be the gist of it. And so, like, if that's you, maybe for you, you're waiting on God this whole time. Maybe God's just been waiting on you to take the first move. And then there's this pressure, right, with all of these voices saying you need to make the right decision, the smart decision. And there's this frustration that, if God closes one door, He'll open another. There's this language inside of the church that's like, okay, well, if there's no doors open, then there'll be a window open. And I was always the kid in like the Sunday school class raising their hand going, why do we have to be in a house to begin with, right? Why are there walls around us? Can we just knock them down and whatever happens, happens? And what I want to do this morning is this. I want to liberate us for a few moments. I want to liberate us from the narrowness of this language that we use about the will of God. I want to liberate us from this tight line that we're walking, thinking that maybe the will of God works like this. You got to walk this line. It's why no one attempts to follow after God, because we think it's so narrow and so small, and that if one mistake, we fall off and we've got to go to the back of the line. When in reality, that's not true at all. Has it ever crossed your mind that maybe God is not a one-dimensional God? Has it ever crossed your mind that maybe there are tons and tons and tons of things that you could do with your life? Has it ever crossed your mind that God's okay with whatever it is you choose to do with your life? Now, this is going to be very freeing for a lot of you. For some of you on the religious side of things, you're not going to like what I'm about to say, okay? And I want to say just hang on for a few moments. It's only going to get worse, all right? Now just hang tight, because for a lot of us, when we think of this language of the will of God, it's like, okay, the will of God is a small little spot, so you as a 15-year-old kid, you got to find that, whatever that is, and just stay there. And when God moves, you move. And you hear this language sometimes, and it creates this, very much so, this pressure and tension within you that you have to figure it all out, and you have to kind of stand there. You've got to find it, and when you get there, you'll know it, right? And it's very confusing. And what I want to say is this, is perhaps this thing is not as frustrating, perhaps this thing is not as narrow, perhaps this thing is not as difficult, as complicated as we've made it out to be. My wife and I, we do a lot of driving when we're not flying. We got a lot of sky miles, and then we do a lot of driving. We put a lot of miles on the car. We rent a lot of vehicles, and one of the vehicles that my wife and I have it has a built-in navigation in it. And I love this navigation because you can punch in the address wherever you're going. And we got to know our navigation really, really well. It's not like the navigation on the phone. It was built into the deal, and the lady's voice came over, which, by the way, I talked to someone, they were telling me about it. I was like, it's interesting because I've never put a man's voice on there, and they were like, psychologists literally limit those things to men voices because men don't listen to men, right? It's a beautiful thing. I'm like, those guys are geniuses because it's so true. I'm like, well, we'll let a lady tell us where to go. That's bizarre. And so I punch in the address, right, and his voices come on, right? Well, listen. On our navigation, there's something interesting that happens. There's a couple things about this. One, you don't know this because you're not married yet, but this is a very huge moment in a man's life when you pull up at a stop sign. And we pull up at a stop sign, and the lady that's in the car talking to you says, turn left. But your wife looks at you and says, no, I'm not listening to her, turn right. It's like you got a serious, like in that moment, you have a decision to make. It's like, do you listen to a lady who 99.9% of the time is right, and go with her, or do you listen to your wife, which 99.9% of the time, if you don't listen to her, you'll get a divorce, right? So it's like, what do you do in that moment when you're kind of stuck and you're like, and you do what I do? I always just do the opposite. I go straight into your boat, right? And just go straight. And so that's a huge moment. But one day we were taking this trip, right, and we were going to Virginia. And going to Virginia alone, like, I don't know if you know anything about that part of the world, but it's already a scary thing to go there. But to go there the way we went there was even more bizarre. We get in the car and I punch in the address, and on our navigation it gives you 3 options. And here are the options. It says fastest route, shortest, which I'm always confused, like, okay, well, I don't understand. Like, what's the difference between fastest and shortest? And shortest is less mileage, but if you break the speed limit, then technically shortest would now be fastest. All right, you get the idea. It's like fastest, shortest, and then there's another button, all right? And this other button on our navigation says other. Now, I can't explain this to you, but as a kid who's got ADD and drinks Red Bull, like every now and then, I like hitting the button other, all right? And other's completely different, because when you hit other, it's like you enter into a Stephen King film, right? It's like you have no idea. And so we're going to Virginia. We have plenty of time. It's like, hey, what time we got to be there? What time does this event start I'm supposed to speak at? Like 7 o'clock. Great, we got 2 hours. How long does it say it's going to take us? 1 hour. I'm like, let's do this. And so we decided to hit other. And we hit other, and we're driving, and when you hit other, you just better believe this is going to happen. But we went from like the 4-lane road to the 2-lane road. The 2-lane road turned to a 1-lane road. The 1-lane road eventually turned into one of those roads where if oncoming traffic's coming, you're going to hit head on, so you just drive as if no one's there. Then the narrow road turned into a gravel road. Has this ever happened to you before? Like literally I'm driving and I'm like, oh my God, are we in a person's driveway? Like, is this a driveway? And about the time it turned into the gravel, my wife's like, turn around, she's got it wrong. And I'm like, listen, just calm down, everybody, calm down. Because we named our lady, by the way, we had to name her. Her name's Sandra. We divorced her, though. It got bad. But the car's gone, we took her out. But Sandra, and then my wife's name is Katie, and it's like, she's talking, and I'm just following the gravel path, and I'm like, sweet Lord, people, stop talking, right? And so we're driving, and she's like, oh, listen to me, turn around. And I'm like, no. And I decided in that moment to go with the navigation. Now, my wife the entire time said, you got it wrong, you got it wrong, you got it wrong. You're going to be late, you're going to miss your event. There's going to be a crowd of people waiting on you to speak. You're not even going to be there because you're hard-headed. And you listen to this, and all of a sudden, the gravel road turned into a little dirt road. The dirt road turned into a dirt bike trail, for the love of God. I'm in a Yukon. Driving up and down. And Katie's like, I said, turn around, you're going to get us killed, turn around. And it's this big mountain we're going over. And I'm just like, no, just hang on, Katie, hang on. This lady knows what she's talking about. And I'm driving, I'm like, we can do this. And out of the trees, I'm telling you, out of the trees, out of nowhere, we drive in, and there's the backside of this church that we're supposed to be at. And I'm telling you, it's like when we came through the tree line, I put the car in park, and if I could chest bump my navigation, I did. And I was like, oh my God, yes! Yeah. And I'm looking at Katie going, boom! How do you like that? Now listen. You need to hear this. For many of us, we think the will of God is like that. We think the will of God is one button and one button only. Has it ever crossed your mind that maybe it's not that narrow? That maybe the reason you think you've got to wait till you turn 30 to figure out what the will of God is for your life is because you've made God a one-dimensional God. And has it ever crossed your mind that maybe there's fastest, maybe there's shortest, maybe there's other, maybe there are a bunch of others, maybe there are many routes, many ways that you can go with your life? Now, it still doesn't change the question that you're asking, well, what is the will of God for my life? I'm 16 years old. I need to know what the will of God is for my life. And many of you are asking that, and I've got good news. I have an answer this morning, all right? Now, don't freak out. I'm going to say this, and I want to just go ahead and lay this out, all right? Before I say this, when I say this, many of you, particularly adults, are going to freak, all right? Because you're going to want parameters around this statement. I'm going to give you a couple, but that's it, all right? I'm not going to give you a bunch of parameters around this statement. Here's why. Because I want you to think this morning. One of the disservices we've done in the church is not allow people to use their brains. I heard Eugene Peterson, he wrote, have you ever seen a copy of The Message before? He did a session called Q Sessions with a friend of mine named Gabe Lyons, and this week I listened to him and he made a statement. This is for the leaders, all right? He made a statement and he said this. He said, we've done sermons a disservice by not putting a bit of ambiguity in them. we tell people way too much. It's like they want to walk out with 3 points and that's it. Oh, we got the sermon right. No. I want you to walk out so messed up by the message that you have to spend the rest of the day trying to figure out deep within the recesses of your soul what that really means for you. So I'm going to make this statement about the will of God, and I want you to listen. Here's the will of God for your life, all right? Some of you are like, sweet Lord, how does he know? Here it is, ready? Love God. Woo! Listen, calm down. This guy's so jacked up this morning. Listen. To tell you, that was one of the most unbelievable moments of my life right here. And you realize nobody else. You are amazing, my friend. All right, listen. Wow. Love God. You ready? Do what you want.
What?
Now some of you are like, and now listen, calm down, because some of you are like, whoa. First of all, number one, show me where that is in the Bible. We're going to get there, hang on. Number two, the last time I said this at Monadnock, in the leaders meeting, they're like, good God, put parameters around that. My kids are walking out and go, woo, woo, it's like, all right, calm down, people, all right. Let me put a few parameters before you freak out, all right? Because some of you are like, first of all, let me say this. That statement doesn't originate with me. There was actually a Christian leader way back when by the name of St. Augustine. Perhaps you know his beach. Beautiful. All right, St. Augustine. St. Augustine once stood before a crowd of people when they were begging about what the will of God was for their life. And he looked at them and he said, here's the will of God. Love God with all your heart, with all your soul, with all your mind. And out of that, do what you want. And everyone freaked out in the moment. They're still freaking out today every time I say that. Now listen. And you need to hear this. There are a few parameters around this statement. I'm not going to give you all of them. I'm just going to give you some of them. If what you want in life does not break the scriptural moral code of God, do it. Now, if what you want in life is to kill someone, you've missed it, all right? Now, I want to put parameters around this because some of you are walking out of here going, well, I love God, so I can do whatever I want. That's what the pastor speaker said. No, be careful. We talked about this last time. If what you want makes you run from God, you've missed it. If what you want is sin, so you think, I'm going to love God and run after sin. No. You've missed it. It's love God. Do what you want. You're getting like, well, where is that in the Bible? There's a couple of verses I want to read to you this morning, but I want to start in the book of Psalm, and I want you to listen to this verse, all right? This is Psalm chapter 37, verse 4. Here's what the scripture says. The scripture says this. The scripture says, delight yourself in the Lord, and He will give you the desires of your heart. Now, these are two interesting words that the writer uses here. He uses the word delight. It literally means find your satisfaction and pleasure in the Lord, and He will give you the desires. The word desires is the word mishra. It literally means petitions, passions, and dreams. Here's what the writer is saying. Love God. Find your satisfaction and pleasure in Him. And when you do, you can do what you want because God gives you the desires, the passions, and the dreams, and the petitions of your heart and of your life. You see, here's the problem. We've grown up in the church and we've begun to buy into this lie that God is always against pleasure. Because somewhere somebody distorted this idea of pleasure and it's always a sinful thing. If your pleasure is always a sinful thing, you have no idea what it really means to live. Because the reality is this, is God is not against pleasure. In fact, the opposite of that is true. The Garden of Eden, the word Eden literally translates the garden of pleasure. That God, in Genesis 1, Genesis 2, before we ever jacked up the plan, God had the world the way God wanted the world. And in that world, it was perfect and there was pleasure involved. That God is not against pleasure. God is not against your desire. Has it ever crossed your mind that maybe the reason you have the desires you have, maybe the reason you have the passions you have, maybe the reasons you're wired the way you're wired is because that's exactly the way God's created you to be. And He doesn't want you to run from that to try to find God's will. He wants you to embrace that because that is His will. You see, here's what I've learned. When you love God with all your heart, with all your soul, with all your mind, then you can do what you want because what you want is really what He wants. Amen. And vice versa. It begins to happen this way. Love God, do what you want, because what you want is what He wants. What He wants is what you want. It works both ways. I mean, I just think we've complicated this whole thing. So no wonder none of you, like many students are like, I'm not interested in the will of God. Because we've made this thing so difficult. It's like taking a dang SAT with like serious, hardcore, word-solving problems. And we're like, I gotta get this, right? I can't miss one number. But no, it's not that difficult. People ask me all the time, hey, tell me how you got started doing what you're doing. I'll just tell you. I was 16 years old when I preached my very first message. I was your age. I'll never forget, I'd just come to know Christ. I knocked on my dad's door. He was a pastor, and I said, Dad, I said, I can't explain it, but I have something within me. I feel like I need to get this verse out of me, and I don't really understand what all that means. And he looked at me and he said, maybe you're called to preach. I'm like, maybe I'm not, right? He's like, well, maybe you are. I'm like, whoa. He's like, there's only one way to find out. I'm like, cool, let's do it. And so he put me, and I kid you not, the very first sermon I ever preached was in a Sunday school class with senior adult ladies. He threw me in there. In hindsight now, I'm like, well, now I know why I did that, because almost as if my dad was saying, if you could do it in there, you're called, all right? And so he stuck me in there, and I remember forget, a 16-year-old kid, I put on a little suit, and I walked in these old ladies' class, and I'm like, ah! And started preaching like a madman. They're all like, ah! And I was like, yeah. And I'm like, this is a weird thing. And then two weeks later, and they were like, man, it went really well. 2 weeks later, my dad's like, you're ready for the big time. I'm like, what's the big time? He's like, big church. I'm like, my God, I don't even know what that. He put me in front of the big. I was scared out of my mind. I literally vomited 5 minutes before I spoke because I was an introvert growing up, all right? And I literally was scared to death of public speaking. And I got up, and I just couldn't explain it. But just like God just got in me and through me and all over me. And it was just like, oh my. And I just did it, right? And I don't even know what I did. I look back on video now, I'm like, man, there's poor people. And I just did my thing. And they were all encouraging. And then time just progressed, and I began to kind of get busy with this. And then here it is, I'm 30 years old. It's been years and years later. And it really isn't that complicated. People are like, how'd you get started doing what you're doing? It's this simple. I do what I do because I want to do it. It's not that difficult. Let's not complicate this. I'm up here this morning. I left my wife in Atlanta, Georgia. I left my family in Atlanta, Georgia to stand before you this morning. It's really this simple. You know why I'm here? Because I want to be here. You know why your youth leaders take time out of their schedule to bring you up here? Because they want to be here. It's not that challenging. So tell me how you met your wife. Tell me how you met her. I love my wife. I've been married almost 9 years. It's a beautiful thing. I love marriage. It was really this simple. I'll never forget this. I'm sitting in the back of a church service. I'm literally in there. You ever been in one of those church services where it was like, oh my gosh, it was lasting forever? I've been in many of those growing up in the church, all right? Where it's like, oh, everything's in slow motion. It's like, shall we gather at the river? And you're like, oh my God, I don't want to gather at the river. I want to go home, right? It's like, are you kidding me? And it's like, everything's slow, and the guys and these preachers are like, whoa, right? You're like, no. And he's preaching, and it's like, this is all, I mean, it's just like God's not in a 5-mile radius of this building. It's like, he doesn't even want anything to do with this madness. This is such a bad misrepresentation of who he is, and he's not even there, and I wish I wasn't there, and I'm like, God, if God does come back, like, come now, please God, come now, save my soul. Like, I don't want to be here. And as I'm there, it's literally like, I kid you not, I'm sitting in the back of the church, I look over, and this blonde-haired girl walks in, and I'm not like, you know, I just believe this, if you're ever going to find a hot girl, to me, I'm just going to say it, church is a good place to begin. I mean that with all my heart. You're like, you shouldn't go with the wrong motivations. I'm just glad you're there. If you're going for women, keep coming. All right, so it's like, and so I'm literally sitting there, and this girl walks in, and there she is, and I'm not kidding you when I tell you, it was as if Almighty God came down on the building, and I promise you, it was like in my ears, all I heard was like, oh, listen to the trumpet of Jesus. And I'm like, oh my God. And she comes walking in, and I'm like, girl. It was like Almighty God came down on the building. I'm like, just keep preaching, preacher, right? It's like, this is amazing. I'm like, keep singing. Let's let this service just keep going because she's hot and she's in the building and I want to get to know who she is. And I'm just like sitting there and she's sitting kind of close to me and I'm trying to, just like figure out who she is. And it really wasn't. I met her that night and we went out on a date shortly after that and we got engaged shortly after that and we got married shortly. It's been 9 years. I'm just here to tell you it's not that difficult. You're like, how do I know what the will of God is? If she's the one or he's the one, or it's really not that challenging. I married my wife because I wanted to marry my wife. Let's not complicate this. I love God with all my heart, with all my soul, with all my strength, so I can do what I want. Love God, do what you're... It's not that challenging. You're like, well, explain this in Scripture, right? There's this verse in Philippians that breaks down this particular passage in Psalm that I love. It's in Philippians 2, and interestingly enough, next Sunday at my home church, we're walking through the book of Philippians, and I don't know if you've ever done this, leaders, but it's phenomenal. Paul's writings in Philippians are so unbelievably amazing. And so I'm reading through Philippians, and in Philippians, there's this particular verse there. It breaks down this. It's in chapter 2. And I want to read this to you. It's actually verse 13. I love this. Here's what the Scripture says. For it is God who is at work in you, both to will and to work for His good pleasure. Now, he uses two words here. Here's what the writer is saying. Paul, in prison, writing this letter to the church of Philippi, he's saying this. God is at work in you. He's at work right now inside of you. Here's what He's doing. He's at work in you, and He's implanting His... I love how He words this. Check this out. His will. Maybe you've heard someone say this. I will you to do this. Like my grandfather used to say. I'm like, no, dude, it's called want. All right? I want you to do this. Old language used to use the word will. The word will is translated though. It literally means this. Desires, wish, to love, to like, to do a thing. Basically what the writer is saying is God's inside of you, and He is implanting desires and passions and dreams inside of you. If you don't believe me, it's why you can't explain some things. My car broke down the other day. I took it to the mechanic, and he comes out and he says, I got good news. And I'm like, tell me. The whole rear end needs to be replaced. Give me knuckles. All right? And I'm like, what? Is this good news? He's like, not good news for your wallet, good news for me. I'm like, explain. He's like, Cody, I love what I do. It's not a job, it's a vacation. All right? I can't explain. I'm like, what? Some of you adults right here, you're miserable with your life. You're miserable with your job because you've settled. Because a job's better than no job, and you're kind of there. And there's always that tension to wrestle with. But I'm listening to this guy, and I'm like, explain. And he's like, I get to rip apart the entire rear end of your car. And I cannot wait to get into that and do that. And like for me, as a guy, I'm like, oh my God, you're weird. Like who wants to do that? I've met people before, they're like, I love my job. I get to clean people's teeth. They walk in, they've been chewing tobacco and got scars, their teeth are off, and I get to get in there and clean them all up. I'm like, that's the most disgusting job I've ever heard in my life. I know doctors who are like, I love my job. I love taking a blade and slicing people right down the middle and pulling out their heart and putting in a new one. Like, and then we take a lunch break. I'm like, oh my God, that's the most disgusting thing I've ever heard in my life. Like, explain to me why people do what they do, and they get up in the morning, and it just really was like, I don't understand these things. I'm just telling you, God has placed it with you. That's why we say, love God, do what you want, because what you want isn't against the will of God. What you want has never crossed your mind. It's exactly what God wants, because God's the one who's wired you. God's the one who's placed those things within you. Yes, the word though, and then there's another word that he uses here. I love this. It's the word to work. It's what he says is this: God's at work inside of you, both to will and to work. Which I love this last statement, for His good pleasure. Both to will and to work. The word to work there is the word energeo. It's where we get the word energy. Essentially what the writer is getting at is this: God is at work inside of you, and He's giving you these passions and dreams and desires. And then check this out. Oh my gosh, this is worth going to now. You ready? He's also at work inside of you, giving you the talents, gifts, ability, and energy to pursue those passions, dreams, and talents. This is getting deep. Hang on, home slice. All right, ready to watch. Students, listen up. If I could have gotten this when I was younger, oh my goodness, how things would have changed. Listen. Here's how you know you are after God's will. When your passions and your dreams and your desires collide with your gifts, your talents, and your energy. In that collision, explosions happen. You ever met someone who is incredibly, incredibly gifted and talented, but they have the lack of passion to back it up? I wonder, students, I want you to listen. I wonder how many of you don't even know this, but there's student pastors, moms, dads, grandparents that are praying for you right now, because here's what they look at when they look at your life. They look at someone who's so stinking, ridiculously gifted and talented, but they've embraced this life of apathy, and it's just like you walk around and you're like, I don't care. You know what you're doing? you're wasting what God's given you. You're so gifted. You can play a guitar better than anyone else on this stage. Why aren't you up here? The reason is because you don't care. Because you bought into the lie that life doesn't start till you're 30, 40, 50 years old. And I'm just telling you, you don't have to wait till then. God says, no. Start it now. Take the first step. I mean, I have a question. What wakes you up in the morning? I said that the last time I was at Monadnock, and I kid you not, I had a kid in the crowd, and he went, an alarm clock. And I didn't know what to do because it was kind of insulting, and at the same time, I'm like, I love everybody, and even the people that make statements that make me sense. I look back at him, and he was just trying to be smart. We said it last night. I've learned this. Denzel Washington said one time, yeah, I'm getting theology from him. This is beautiful. In my opinion, one of the greatest actors in the world. Denzel Washington said the loudest person in the room is the weakest person in the room. A lot of truth to that.
Oh, crap.
The very one who screams out the most is the very one who's the weakest the most. But anyway, that's a whole other deal. All right, you need to listen. So this kid goes, an alarm clock. I didn't know what to do. It was kind of an awkward moment, like as people heard him, and so I looked at him, and it just came, and I just kind of floated out, and I said, yeah, that's the problem. Because when you find your passion, you won't need an alarm clock to get you up in the morning. Here's what I've learned about my life. When you get on board with what it is that's deep within the recesses of your being, you don't have to set the alarm clock for 8 a.m. because you're up before 8 a.m. You are fired up about life. You are fired up about what it is that's deep within the recesses. No wonder you don't want to get up in the morning because all you do is play video games. That's not a passion to live off of. Maybe it is for you. Maybe you're going to make a living and make a killing. Go for it. I want to be your cheerleader. But for others of you, it's like, oh my gosh, like that's not me. And that's why you have no motivation to get out of the bed in the morning because everything for you has been this cyclical process. You get up, you go to school, you just sit through class, and then you have a little bit of fun afterwards when you get your free time, and that's pretty much it. And you go home and you do the same routine over and over and over and over, and you've fallen into this kind of spiritual slumber, and that's it. And this morning, all I'm saying is God is just knocking at your heart, He's knocking at your door, and He's saying, listen, what's waking you up in the morning? What keeps you up at night? Is there anything within you deep down inside that you have a passion to do, that you have a desire to do, that you're dreaming about? What you dreaming about? What is it that God is placing in you? And I'll say the opposite of that is true. You ever met someone who has incredible passion and desire and dreams, but they don't have the gifts and ability and talents to back it up? It doesn't take long. It's called American Idol. And I'll just say this, all right, I don't want to spend much time on this because I don't want to discourage you from attending. Here's the thing. You're like, well, how do I know? I always encourage students. I'm like, get 2 pieces of paper. Write down your passions. Write down your passions, desires, dreams. This would be a good thing for you people to do in small group. Write down your passions, desires, dreams. Write them all down. I don't care how silly they are. You're like, I want to be the #1 champion in the world of thumb wrestling. Write it down. That's great. That's passion. Write it down. Write it down. And then take another piece of paper and write down what you see to be your gifts, talents, and abilities. And then pass the paper around to your best friends and let them write down what they think is your gifts, talents, and abilities. And then compare the pieces. Draw a line. When you see this matches this, X it off. Perhaps you have a good equation there. Now listen, I've met students before. They've literally come to me. I'm just being honest. We have to be transparent about this, all right? They come to me and are like, man, I know what it is. I heard your message. I know what it is. I'm like, what is it? Like, I'm going to be, you ready? The next Carrie Underwood, all right? And I look at them and I say, tell me. Sing for me. And then they'll sing and I'm like, no, you're not. All right? It's that simple. It's really not. Now, I know you're like, you shouldn't discourage me. No. Here's what I'll say. If you think it's your passion, go for it. Try it. But if it doesn't work out, don't freak out. You're like, what do you do in that moment? I need you to hear me. Let me illustrate this. I have a great passion and desire to help the country of Haiti. I'm going there again in April 11th. I love what God is doing there. It's a beautiful thing. But I can't change that country. However, it's a dream of mine. So what do? I don't have the gifts, ability, and talents to change it. But what I do have is a platform. So what I've learned to do is leverage my platform and hold hands with people that are actually changing the country of Haiti. You're like, what does that mean for me? Maybe for you. You don't have the gifts, the talents, and the ability to back up this passion and dream. That doesn't mean that you don't try it. Try it, but if it doesn't work out, find someone who is doing that. Be their #1 cheerleader. Encourage them. Push them. And then you start from ground zero. And you say, all right, let's start over here. What does this look like? for me. You see, we bought into this lie within our culture. Disney's what did it to us. It was like, if you can dream it, you can do it. When I wish upon a star, you're like, oh my God. Like, yeah, that's me. Like, we live in a culture where it's like, if you can dream it, you can do that. That's nonsense. If you can do everything you can dream, you have a lack of an imagination. There's a lot of things I dream, but it doesn't mean I can do them. Maybe for you need to consider this. Maybe what you think is a dream God's calling you to is actually a fantasy that's distracting you from what God's really calling you to. God's at work in you, both to will and to do. When passions and gifts collide with each other, when dreams and talents collide with each other, things begin to happen. I'll wind this down. We've already gone over a little bit. I'll share this and then we'll be out of here. I have two sets of dreams in my life. I have like ministry dreams. What I really want to see God do with my life, my wife's life, our organization. Love it. I try to write them all down. And then I have another piece of paper which I consider to be my personal dream thing. This is not a necessity, but it's what some of you might call a bucket list, right? And it's basically what I want to do before I die. And I'll even have them by age sometime. You're like, this guy's lost his mind. I'm not kidding you. I turned 30 in June of this year, right? And one of the dreams that I had that I've always wanted to do, I've always wanted, and then my wife always laughs at me. She's like, dude, you've lost your mind. I live in Atlanta, Georgia, but I have always, my wife calls me a wannabe, I've always wanted to be an official surfer, all right? And I know you're like, what is it, what? It really isn't that difficult. I've always wanted to be, I envy people, like I follow Kelly Slater on Twitter, and so I think I'm a surfer. That automatically assumes I am. But I love surfing. I love the idea of it. I love the way those people interact with each other. I love the community. I love the way surfing looks, right? And so I grew up in Florida a little bit. I was born in Florida, and so I grew up there, so I did a little bit of surfing. And then just about 6 years ago, I was in Maui, and I did some surfing there, and it was great. But I have on my little bucket list, I want to go surfing. And you ready for this? Not just anywhere. I want to go to the surf capital of the world, which happens to be San Diego, California. And I had it down on my bucket list, on my dream list, before I turned 30. And so this year, I knew I was turning 30, and I said, Katie, check out the list. And she looked at me, and she's like, I knew you were going to that. It's your birthday present. We already got this thing worked out. She's like, you're going, your best friend's going, I'm going, and my best friend's going. I'm like, this is going to be unreal. And so we did. We loaded up. We got to the airport. We got in the airport, and I went with my best friend and his wife, and it happens to be my wife's best friend. Worked out, nice little, 4 couple together deal. My best friend happens to be my pastor. His name is Pete. Now you need to know something about my best friend Pete. He's the type of guy that will get you in serious trouble. By that I mean this. He not only encourages a dream, doesn't matter what the dream is, he's the type of guy, he would so cheerlead for you to do it, doesn't matter what the consequences are, it's very dangerous. By that I mean this. If I was standing on the edge of the bridge without a bungee cord, I'm going, dude, I have a desire to jump off. He'd be like, do it! Do it! Like he's that guy. Complete ignorance, doesn't matter. He's like, he just wants to be an encourager of your dreams. And so I thought, there's a better guy to go than him. And so we go and we fly in. And it doesn't take long. We get there and we get in the rental car, and y'all, I have this sick Jeep, all right, with the top down. Oh my gosh, it was a dream come true. I'm in this Jeep. Get our surfboards. They're on top of the Jeep, right? And I'm like, is life getting any better than this? Like for you, you have your picture of heaven. This is the pearly gates, right? I'm like, this is and we're just cruising down, the freeway, getting ready to pull into San Diego, and California Love, Tupac Shakur's playing. I'm like, oh my God, like this is, and I'm like, yeah, California. And I'm like, yeah, my buddy Pete's like, we're gonna go surfing. I'm like, we are. It's gonna be amazing. And we pull in, and we put in the park, and I get my board off the top, and he gets his kayak. It was that big. Off the top. I'm like, let's do this. He's like, well, wait a minute, don't we need wetsuits? And I'm like, yeah, we actually had a friend of ours who went to our home church. Unfortunately, he was actually a professional surfer, and by that I mean he made surfboards and he did these tours, and he knows what surfing really is. And so he gave us these 2 wetsuits. I'll never forget the conversation we had before he left. He said, hey, you guys are going to need these. And I'm like, what is it? He's like, it's a wetsuit. And I'm like, dude, why would we need a wetsuit? We're real surfers. He's like, point made, you're not a real surfer, right? And I'm like, okay. Didn't take long to figure out why I put on that wetsuit. I put on the wetsuit, my friend put on his, we looked like a bunch of dang penguins walking around with these massive kayaks. Because if you know anything about surfing, if you're not good, always start off with a long board, not a short board. And so I had a long board, my friend had a long board. And I'm like, we couldn't even hardly pick this thing up. We get out there, didn't take 2 seconds. We jump into this water, Pacific coast, right? I'm like 5-10 seconds into this experience, and it is so ice cold in this wetsuit. And I didn't realize what was going on. I actually had a little crack in my wetsuit. Oh my gosh. That means it filled up my entire body, which means the wetsuit's pointless. Like I'm halfway into this water going, like I am like all crunched up, cramped up. It's like, oh my God. My buddy Pete's like, this is amazing. I'm like, I'm cramping up. He's like, banana, eat a banana. I'm like, oh, there are hundreds of bananas out here. All right. And so we're cramping up, and he's like, keep going. And so we try. Now listen, here's what you need to know about surfing, and particularly in San Diego, you have like a one break and you have a second break. The idea is to get behind the second break. If you're not that good, at least get above the first break. You wait for the big wave to come in, you ride it. This is how surfing works. And so what you don't know is, it's a whole lot more challenging. I've surfed in Maui. It had nothing, now hear me, nothing on how big the waves were in San Diego. I literally paddle out to the first break, and I'm like, here we go. My buddy Pete's like, this is going to be, and he's fighting, I'm fighting, and we get about halfway to this wave, and I kid you not, it's so massive, it's coming home me. I'm like, oh my God. This is not at all what I expected. This is like literally like a tsunami. It's coming, and I'm like, what do we do? And the next thing I get hit by my first wave, and it's like, welcome to San Diego. I kid you not. I wake up, and I'm on the shore going, what in the world just happened to me? And my buddy Pete's like, come on back out. And I'm like, dude, I just went in a washer machine and got torn up. It ended up on this shore. I don't want anything. And so we kept fighting, and I'm embarrassed to say, we went 3 days. Never got to surf because we never made it through the first break. 3 days. On the third day, finally, my friend Pete's like, dang it, I've had enough. He throws the big kayak down. He's like, I'm getting myself. And I'm like, what are you doing? He's like, I'm calling my friend. I'm like, who's your friend? Our friend from the church. I'm like, whoa, wait a minute. He's like, oh yeah, he said he had some professional surf people that would come and give us lessons. Why would you wait till the last day to tell us this? And this is what he said. He's like, because I thought it would be so cool if we could do it on our own and just fulfill the dream. But we didn't. We should have known that the first 5 times that we tried this. Don't worry about it. So he calls these guys. And sure enough, my buddy's like, yeah, we're going to send over a few people. They know what they're doing. So I got to tell you about these 2 guys come over. They are the official San Diego guys, all right? He's wearing the gray Dickies that come down to here. He's got on his little sandals and his big black, Prada glasses. And he's like, dude, right? And I'm like, oh my God, this is so real. You're real. Can I touch you? This is amazing, right?
It's too low.
And then, of course, like, I'm from Florida and Georgia and all over the South. I'm like, Dave, right? This doesn't work. And so he comes, and then with him, he brings this guy who's visiting with him. This guy's a professional surfer. This guy, you ready for this? He has an MDiv in sports psychology. He's a sports psychologist for the Dallas Mavericks. Oh. What that means is basically what he does is he gets in the head of Dirk's head before a game. He literally gets into the team and he says, all right guys, listen to me. This is all mental. You can win this game. Well, I get really excited when he tells me what he does, and I'm like, oh my God, like this guy's legit. And so my buddy, I wanted to go with this guy, sports psychologist, but my buddy Pete goes with him because he thought the professional surfer would be better. He was wrong, because I was listening to the sports psychologist. We're standing on the shore with our boards and we're looking at this washing machine coming in. He's like, you guys ready to? And I'm like, ready to, right? And I'm just like, this is amazing. And all of a sudden the sports psychologist looked at me, he's like, listen to me, y'all. He said, it's all right here. All of it. He's like, don't worry about that first break. You're going to get through. He's like, here's what you need to do. When you see that wave coming, paddle, paddle, paddle. When it comes, dip your board in, pull back out, paddle, paddle, paddle. Dip in, pull back out, paddle, paddle. You keep going until you get past it. Don't stop. Don't look back. Keep going. It's all right. He's getting us all jacked up. I'm like, woo! Woo! Dallas Mavericks! Woo! I'm like, this is it. I'm like, let's do this. And we run out like we're on Baywatch. Don't worry about it, it's a sinful show. I jump on the board and I start paddling and I'm like, here we go. And I look at the sports psychologist next to me going, woo! And I'm paddling and I go to get past the first break and here comes the break and I'm like, here we go. And about the time the first break comes, I look over and the guy's like, do it! I dip down, pull up, paddle, 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 dip down, pull up, paddle. And I find for the first time on the last day of our surfing trip, I made it past the first break. Now, here's what you need to know. It doesn't last long. There's one break, then there's 2 breaks. And I wasn't prepared for what was about to happen. I look up, I see the second tsunami coming, and I'm like, I look over, and I'm like, well, where's all my friends? And I look over to the sports psychologist. There he is, sitting on his board past the second break, going, woo! And I'm like, yeah! And he's like, it's coming! And I'm like, I got it! And so I turn around, and I get down on my board, and I'm like, here we go, I see it coming. And then all of a sudden, I'm like, well, wait a minute. I see the sports psychologist. I see the professional surfer. I see me. But where's my friend Pete? I look out. Pete's on the shore with the lifeguard having the Heimlich done to him. I'm like, all this is happening while I'm about to catch the biggest wave of my life. And I'm like, and I start pointing at the sports psychologist like, Pete's dying! He's dying! And my friend's like, woo! Oh my God! Now listen, you're like, why don't we see selfish? I'll tell you why. Because he knew this wave was coming. I just need to tell you, first break waves are kind of big. Second break waves are so big. This is the God's honest truth. If you don't ride them and you go down, you could literally die. And I'm like, I don't have a choice. At this point, I've got to forget about what the lifeguards are doing to my friend. I have to do this. And so I start paddling. And for the first time in my life as I'm paddling, I get up, catch the first wave of my life in San Diego. I jump up. I am riding this thing in. It's the greatest moment I'm up on the board going, yes, dream is fulfilled. And I literally look down and see my friend. They're pulling off his wetsuit. They're doing the high. And I'm going, Pete! Pete! Look at me! This is unbelievably amazing! Riding this thing in. And I'm not kidding you. It was kind of a bad scenario. He was okay, but I immediately rode the wave in, jumped in the car, rushed to the emergency room. My friend had to go to the emergency room. What happened was this. Is that on the first break, while we were all out having a good time, his kayak got caught up in the wave and nailed him in the Adam's apple. Never had that happen. Took the breath from him. He swallowed water into his lungs. Bad moment, but I kid you not. In the hospital, he's leaning up against this thing, and the doctor said he can't even hardly talk. It messed his voice box up bad. And he looked at me and he said, I saw you. And I'm like, oh! Now listen. We're like, what does that have to do with anything? I'll just tell you this. Listen, some of you, if you're not careful, you're going to sit on the shore and just watch the surfers. Because you've embraced a life of apathy and you don't care. You have gifts, you have talents, you can do it all day long, but you don't care. You're going to waste your life watching surfers. Others of you are never going to make it past the first break because you don't care enough. And there are some of you who your passions and your talents are going to collide together and you're going to give up on the first wave of your life and you're going to ride that thing all the way through. It's really not that challenging. You're like, why did you do that? Because I wanted to do that. It's a dream in my life. It's not that difficult. I do what I do because I want to do it. St. Augustine said it best, love God, do what you want. I close with this statement. One writer said this, if our love of God is real and profound, then that's all that matters. If everything we do is grounded in a total love of God, then we do not have to worry about commandments at all. Right actions flow irresistibly from that love. If we get the love of God right, all else will fall into place. Love God. Do what you want. Jesus, thank you